Welcome, everyone, to our Games People Play platform. Bernie Corbett now in Season 2, Week 2. And our guest this week is Ottis O.J. Anderson, the MVP of Super Bowl 25 for the New York Giants. Starred with the St. Louis Cardinals prior to that. Had a very illustrious NFL career. And as our view from the press box, providing the view from the press box this week, we are honored to have a longtime, well, that's an understatement, a longtime observer of the National Football League. He began at the Newark Star-Ledger back in 1961, was on the Giants beat till 1995, and is still on the Giants beat some 60 years later. You can find him at eGiants, and we welcome in the inimitable Dave Klein. Dave, great to have you with us.
Inimitable, wow. Nobody's ever used that word for me.
First thing that came to mind, we had a little history many years ago, and it's great to get reacquainted here and to talk about, well, as we've talked about Giants history, and you've seen a lot of it, there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly. We're talking about some of the good when we talk about Ottis Anderson. And
he was one of my favorites, Bernie.
He was. In your long tenure covering the Giants, he numbers in your pantheon. I was curious, once again, the fact that you've covered the Giants for so long a period of time. What was your first awareness or your first notice of O.J.? I'm suspecting he might have been running wild for the Cardinals against the Giants early in his career.
He did that. And I remember Ali Sherman was not there as coach anymore, but he was still advising the team. And he kept telling them, you got to draft this kid in the first round. And they never did. So it was destiny, I think, that he finally got to the Giants.
And, of course, he came out in 1979, and the Giants, I believe that they selected a guy from Morehead State named Phil Simms, and Ottis got bumped down to the Cardinals that year.
Yep. Bumped down.
Exactly. The gallery wasn't too happy that day, Dave. Yes.
No, they had no idea what Morehead State was. They never heard of Phil Simms. All they knew about was Ottis Anderson, who was the best running back that year anywhere.
Indeed he was, coming out of the University of Miami. And he was able to rack up just a remarkable run with the Cardinals. 5 1,000-yard seasons. It was only broken in the streak year of 1982. And was one of the best in the NFL during that era with mediocre teams at best. But truth be told, Dave, offensive lines that were pretty solid. He had a number of elite guys that were opening holes for him up front at that time.
Oh, absolutely. He did. We're talking about the Cardinals. You got to think about like Dan Deerdorf.
Yep. Bob Young.
Yeah. It was a good team, and he made it better. There's a funny story about him in Miami. He wore uniform number 47. And years later, he's at a Miami game, and he's in the elevator coming down from the press box, and he sees Michael Irvin, who was another great Miami player,
yep,
who wore number 47. And Ottis said, I told him to retire that damn number. You're not good enough to wear it.
That's our man Ottis. Terrific story to remember. That's right. Number 47 moved from running back to wide out there with great distinction. Remained in great distinction for the Hurricanes with not retiring that number. And from the Cardinals and the success that he personally had with guys like Deerdorf and a young Joe Bostic, an old Bob Young, some of those guys who were opening holes for him up front. He had the opportunity in 1986 to come to the Giants. And your thoughts then covering the team when the word got out that the Giants were going to acquire him during that 86 season. I guess more of an insurance policy at that time, Dave, with Joe Morris being the primary back.
Yes, it was insurance. They knew his history, of course, and they figured if anything happened to Joe, he'd be a good guy to have.
With Ottis coming to the Giants, little used, through 1987 and 1988 behind Joe Morris as the feature back in the Bill Parcells, Ron Earhart's offense at the time. Then 1989, Joe Morris injured, and Bill Parcells, he gets the old horse out of the barn and puts the saddle back on Ottis Anderson, back in the saddle. He's the NFL's comeback player of the year. He runs for over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. And your thoughts as he got back and had that remarkable run at the tender age of 32. I mean, in running back years, that is ancient.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when he first got there, he was such a legend, the young kids, that all the baby running backs used to follow him around. It was almost silly. It looked like a mother duck being followed by her duckling. Locker room, through the field, in the hallways. Wherever you saw Ottis, you saw 4 or 5 kids running back. It was really spectacular. I never saw that before.
And follow them they did. And who could have a better role model? That Giant team was derailed in the infamous, I think, Flipper Anderson still running out to Route 17 with that overtime touchdown for the Rams in 1989. But the following year, and the Giants, they drafted Rodney Hampton. Rodney Hampton was working his way to become the feature back, but opportunity knocked again. Act 2, now Act 3 of the Ottis Anderson story. And down the stretch and into the playoffs, now 33 turning 34, he becomes the feature back again. Your memories of that, Dave, to think that once again Bill Parcells had tapped one Ottis Anderson to be the guy to carry the mail for him.
Well, he was, but he didn't do it the way Parcells wanted him to. And, you know, you remember Parcells, he was absolutely rigid in what he believed and what he thought people should be doing. So in 1990, when Rodney was not doing very well, he told OJ, he said, come on, your turn. And he just loves that one more chance. Otis was unique. Otis was one of those people who nobody ever expected the things that came out of his mouth to actually come out of his mouth. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He was very special to know, and every once in a while I still talk to him, and he was one of the special people.
That performance, as you look back, certainly one of the fondest memories to Giants fans of a certain age to think back now. Amazing to think it 30 years ago, Super Bowl 25 and the Giants 20-19 victory. You think back to that game, Dave, what immediately comes to mind about OJ, his 100-yard performance, and his ability to hang on to the ball and allow the Giants to really just keep the ball away from Jim Kelly as well as they did?
Well, what stays in my mind today even is he broke loose on a run down the left sideline going south. And a cornerback, and I wish I could remember his name.
Oh, Kelso.
I'm sorry?
Mark Kelso.
You sure that was him?
Yeah, I think it was, yep.
Because Otis gave him a straight arm.
Yes.
As good as I've ever seen it delivered before. And he knocked that poor kid right off his feet and kept going. And afterwards, I asked him about that. He said, I always wanted to do that. The only time I did it before was in a barroom fight.
As you think back on that game and the two game plans, it's well documented, the two defensive game plans, Bill Belichick, what he did to construct a game plan to defeat Joe Montana and the 49ers, and then Jim Kelly the following week, Dave. I think it's maybe underrated what Ron Earhart did on the other side of the ball to construct that ball control game plan that Otis was right in the middle of. I think that he's maybe somewhat underrated or underrecognized.
Oh, absolutely. Poor Ron. I mean, you know, he passed away a while ago. But he used to say that game plans were different every week, whether they look the same or not, because you were playing against different people. And he said, when they gave me Ottis Anderson, was able to make easier game plans.
Simplified it to the point of having Ottis, his ability to run it. And,
yeah, he could run it wherever you put him.
Absolutely the case. And remarkable, if you want to talk about the prototype, as we talk about what made Bill Parcells the happiest, Dave, one stat that I'd have to remind you of, 739 touches during his Giants career, 3 fumbles and 739 touches. That's a Parcells guy.
Yeah, I think I think Daniel Jones surpassed that in his rookie year.
And Dave, as someone that's followed the NFL and as closely as you have and been on the Giants beat now, once again, 60 years, can you think of, in your time, anybody that has a parallel or an analogy? Has any other running back had a career arc quite like Ottis Anderson, to be as successful as he was and then to be essentially on the shelf and, I guess, recharging the battery, if you will, to come back and to have the great success that he had at 32, 33, 34 years old as a running back? Ancient.
Nobody like that, but in reverse, you could use Frank Gifford, who came up as a running back and in his last several years was a wide receiver and was just as spectacular catching the ball as he was running it. You know, Joe Hollywood, they used to call him.
Exactly. To have the success that he had. Well, the body healed, and thankfully for Giant fans, it did. And Ottis once again became the marquee performer. He was in the spotlight for the Giants, and as the Super Bowl 25 MVP. And final question, once again, over 10,000 yards rushing. Had a four-yard average, 86 touchdowns. When he retired, he was 8th in career rushing, 7th in career touchdowns overall. Dave, is he a Hall of Famer? Is Ottis Anderson a Hall of Famer? Where would you classify him?
It's an injustice that he's not in the Hall of Fame. It really is. I don't know that many Hall of Fame running backs were able to equal or be better than his career. But sports writers wrote for the Hall of Fame. So, as coaches like to say, what do they know?
So you would indict your fraternity in this particular case and say that you would unequivocally say it is an injustice that Ottis is not in Canton. That's one of the things we're going to try to campaign for, to maybe get the recognition for him to be reconsidered for Canton.
Well, they finally agreed to put Harry Carson in, and that was an equal injustice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I've never been a fan of fraternities anyway.
That's right. You're right there with Groucho, with clubs that would have you as a member, Dave, I suspect.
That's right. Any fraternity that would want me, I couldn't think of belonging.
Exactly. That would definitively eliminate them from the equation. There you go. Absolutely. Dave, this has been a lot of fun, and we appreciate your venerable view from the press box with your great tenure covering the Giants, all that you've seen. And once again, an opportunity. Where can people find Dave Klein? We mentioned about E-Giants, and what is the best route, if you will, on the gridiron for them to take to get all your great stuff that you're still putting out covering the Giants?
Just give them my email address. One word, lowercase, Dave S. Klein, Klein, at AOL.com.
All right, and you'll go to E-Giants and be able to get...
No dash, just one word, E-Giants.
E-Giants, indeed. Dave, thanks very much for joining us. Really a pleasure, and, well, we can only hope that the Giants will rise again in the 30 years since Ottis Anderson, and hopefully good things to come in the fall.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Dave Klein with our view from the press box this week on Games People Play.